Hi everyone. Today we are just arriving at Crowley Cheese Factory, which is a factory that opened up in 1882. It's been in continuous use since then, making some of the most delicious cheese in the United States, and specifically in Vermont. This is in Mount Holly in Rutland County, and we are looking forward to going in, talking to some of the people inside who have been working at this same facility for over 100 years. We're looking forward to seeing a little bit more of what it looks like on the interior and also seeing what kind of products they still offer. So let's go inside, and in the rest of the video I'll talk a little bit more about the history of Crowley cheese. So what I'm holding right now is a sampler that they sell. Very reasonably priced, very kind folks inside who are eager to tell us more about their cheese and eager to tell us more about their family business. Can go through a couple of the flavors that they have, which I thought was really interesting. It wasn't just like one type of Crowley cheese, which I didn't know. I thought that they might only kind of be like a one-trick pony, but was not the case. They have lots of different cheeses. So they've got things like garlic chive and smoked garlic, as well as just kind of your traditional sharp or extra sharp cheddars. A cool one that I guess it's easier on the stomach, which is nice. And then they said that sage is kind of like an industry staple, I guess, for a long time, which I didn't know. Hey guys, so we are in the Catamount Den, which is when we go a little bit deeper into our story of the day and talk about some of the details behind the person or the idea or the place that we're investigating. So today we're investigating Crowley cheese, but I just wanted to give you a rundown. I think one of the things that I'm going to try to keep doing when we go out, and if you guys have any Vermont pins that you want to see displayed on our table here in the Catamount Den, I've got a small collection going, but I'd like to build on it. I'd like to continue to grow it, and we're going to try to find pins when we go out to some of these places and visit other places throughout Vermont. So we've got the pins, we've got the flag. We feel like we're in a fully Vermonted atmosphere, and so now we have some time to get into our story today about Crowley cheese. So after we went inside, we kind of got a chance to talk to some of the folks there about what actually makes Crowley cheese special. Why is it different? In 1824, the family started making cheese at home, just on their own farm, selling it at market to other folks in the area, but nothing official yet. But their process was different. It was unique. They rinsed their curds, I guess, during the cheese making process, which, as a cheese novice, I have very little sense of what that means. But understanding that this is different and unique, I decided to try some of that cheese myself, and I actually brought some out with me on camera. So, just from a taste test, simple taste test, you can tell that this is creamier, a little bit softer and sweeter than a typical Vermont cheddar, which probably stems from the fact that Crowley cheese, they've really taken pride in making cheese differently in a special way for such a long time. That doesn't necessarily mean Crowley cheese is a tourist trap, though. Unlike a lot of the other places that, they blow up, they become destination food locations for tourists, Crowley cheese never really had that happen. There's only like 50 Google reviews for the whole place, and it's been around since 1882. So you would think at this point, a couple more people would have caught on to this cheese gold mine in Healdsville, which was a bustling junction with 6 cheese factories for a period of time. But all of those have since faded, and Crowley is the only one that remains. Those early factories had things called cheese meetings, which Crowley hosted occasionally, where farmers and producers could come and talk about their product, talk about how they could band together and form associations that would benefit their yield. So in 1890, about 6,000 pounds of milk was going through Crowley cheese daily. By 1936, that number had declined, But that same year, Crowley Cheese made over 100,000 pounds of cheese. That's it's an absurd amount of cheese. And George Crowley, part of the family, supposedly ate 3,000 pounds of that cheese between 1930 and 1936, or equivalent of about a pound and a half of cheese a day. It's hard to conceive how someone could love cheese that much, but George managed. And, even though it is fascinating to just understand that this place existed and that it's, maybe a kind of a cultural icon in central Vermont, south central Vermont, there's also something very unique about the economy that Crowley Cheese represented at the time. It was sort of this rural economic community based around neighborly cooperation rather than rugged individualism. There's a great quote that I'm going to read from a newspaper in the Deerfield Times from 1939 that talks about this. This true example of decentralized industry works for the good of both producer and manufacturer. The farmers get a better price for their milk because the cheese, being of the highest quality, itself fetches a higher price. They save transportation costs and expenses incurred by shipping milk to the cities, instead of hitching it up to the mare and drawing it to neighbor Crowley's. And they feel better about it, more secure, safer, because they are dealing with an individual, a neighbor, a man they know and can trust. So as you can see from that quote, what's interesting is that for a long time, decentralization was the name of the game in Vermont. We had this idea that instead of prioritizing huge companies, monopolies, agricultural producers from out of state, Vermonters really valued in-state production, mom and pop producers, family producers. And in the last maybe 50 to 80 years, we've seen centralization ramp up significantly in Vermont, with a lot of those bigger producers pushing out some of these smaller places like Crowley, these smaller cheese factories, smaller dairy producers, etc. That idea of centralization makes you ask, well, what about Crowley cheese made it special, that it survived that? How exactly did that happen? And it's not exactly clear, but my guess is that it had a lot to do with the fact that Crowley cheese became kind of synonymous with the cheese industry in general in Vermont. Crowley cheese was mentioned over and over again in newspapers by the 1940s. The idea of having this own unique, special, handmade, self-selected cheese from a Green Mountain town in Vermont was something special and unique to not just people in the state, but eventually people outside of Vermont too, which probably allowed an export that wasn't totally accessible to a lot of the decentralized industries that were pushed out by centralization during the second half of the 20th century and even parts of the first half of the 20th century. So this regional pride, this belief that Crowley cheese was special and that it was worth preserving, probably is the reason we still have it today. It was put on the National Historic Register of Places. It's, gotten this kind of reputation that allows it to reach out to small producers and small distributors around the state and continue to sell their product. So, this cheese factory that is down 2 dirt roads, Chester Arthur was the president when they opened this place up. It's unique, it's special, and so many people have come across it and found that out to be true. But it's also got something to do with luck that Crowley still exists. There have been many other producers, many other factories that have been pushed out of business by the centralization that was taking place around that time, all the way up until the present day. We should be thankful that Crowley cheese still exists, because the truth is that, yeah, luck played a role, but the real reason Crowley survived is because they make some pretty damn good cheese. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you in the next video.